HBO's Avenue 5. Should you watch it? So I think this show's strengths rely a lot on what HBO have always done well. You have a solid cast. You've got a fairly decent script. Not the best for like comedies, but HBO comedies can be a little bit hit and miss at times, you know. They have like the likes of Curbs, but then they also have the likes of things like Ballers, where it's like can be good but also can miss the mark a lot. And this show feels a lot like that as well. Like, let's look at the premise. Essentially, this is just like any other situational comedy that we have in recent years, because a lot of the time they just go after the workplace, because that is a key part of everybody's lives. What would happen if this workplace had to deal with this scenario? How do they get through it? Because it's something that we can all relate to, right? But what I don't think works well about this is the fact that they've gone for that. Like, in recent times, we've had shows like Miracle Workers, which I really enjoyed the first season of, which, you know, looks at what would happen if The Office was in heaven. And then you've got stuff like Mythic Quest, which I really enjoyed, because if you're gonna try and approach like a modern approach to offices, what I liked about that was it was more in a realm of an industry that's evolved in recent times, whereas a lot of the time they just try and tap in to these very traditional scenarios. Yes, you've got the over eccentric boss approach, you know, the guy that ended up in charge who's lying about his whole situation. He's just bullshitted his way through. And yes, you have got the typical can I speak to the manager type customer on board, and all of these things that we've seen 1,000 times before, which personally, if you're going to take on, you need to make sure that you're hitting all of the marks. And I think one thing that doesn't work really well about this is it falls flat in those moments. Like, it's based in ridiculousness, but the ridiculousness just isn't, it doesn't come across well. And you've got someone like Hugh Laurie, which has like his delivery is second to none on nonsense. Like, you know, he can say some of the craziest things with the straightest of faces, yet you haven't written into his strengths. As far as a sci-fi kind of parody goes, I think picking a cruise ship was a good idea, but I think the focus is just a little bit too predictable. It would have been better to see this cruise ship inhabiting new planets or what, like that kind of thing. Things that we have seen in other shows anyway. Even in serious sci-fi, we get loads of great humor in the like, well, just this scenario in itself is quite funny, and how would humans even in like, you know, 200-300 years tackle this sort of scenario and stuff, whereas this is just, this could have happened on a normal cruise ship, like this scenario, and I don't think that works for it. I think they've tried to make it ridiculous. Like Orville, like, you may not like it because it might suffer a bit too much from that Family Guy syndrome or whatever, but overall, they've done a really good job with the stuff that you need to nail, which is getting the characters and the way that they interact, and the dialogue, which is something that, you know, HBO is so good at. And that's not taking away from, like, there's some good jokes and stuff in here, but overall, the plot and everything is just very, like, we just pushed this out, and we're going to rely on our cast, and I don't think the cast had enough time to gel and so on and so forth to make that work. I just think you could have played more into some of the strengths of your actors that you chose to cast, right? That's it. Like, Josh Gad is incredible, but it just seems like he's doing a Jonah Hill impression throughout this. I don't know, man. I don't know. That said, I watched episodes 1 through to 9, and I'm going to watch the 10th episode. If they do a second season, I'll probably give it a go. People have got a lot of time on their hands right now. If you want just a nice little escape to space, then Avenue 5 is for you. But if you are kind of a hardcore fan of most sci-fi like productions, this might rub you a little bit up the wrong way, just because it doesn't seem to hit on the levels you may want it to, and you might just be there like, yeah, but I could watch like any episode of TNG and it could be hilarious. Like, just the stunt fights alone in that are funnier than like most of these episodes, you know? So I don't know, maybe that's another thing that we'll talk about later on. Are we getting to a point in general where sci-fi is almost so clean cut that our imaginations, like, you know, back in the day we'd watch things and our imaginations would do a little bit of the work for us, same with games and things like that now, but now everything's so clean cut and everything, it kind of takes away from a little bit of the charm of a lot of sci-fi things? I don't know. Obviously, we get better special effects and everything, but it feels like just generally, like, that imagination seems to dip in a lot of approaches to... The closer we get to it being a reality is the less people start thinking about it. I don't know. So yeah, that is my review of Avenue 5. Enjoy your days. Look out for each other. Stay clean in this time of cleanliness and hygiene, being at risks. You know, and happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there, because it is Mother's Day today in England. Is that a global event? And we're going to end like that. Like, share, subscribe.